Welcome to This Old App, a podcast about learning, coding, smashing stuff together, breaking things apart, startups, failing, winning, and any other buzzwords we can think of.
Hey, good morning, Randy. This morning, we've got Bekah Hawrot Weigel on with us. I became aware of Bekah through Twitter, which is the great meeting place. She's been doing some work with Moms Can Code. She's got a seminar she's doing. I'll even let Bekah explain exactly what it is. A course she's doing on Ethereum and blockchain with Moms Can Code. So welcome, Bekah.
Hi, it's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, more than happy to have you. So why don't we start there? Why don't we start with your story, really? So I was working through your blog posts and reading everything you've got going on. So why don't you talk a little bit about your journey and how you came into this crazy world we call coding?
Absolutely. So my story is a little different than most. About a year and a half ago, I gave birth to my fourth child, and during labor, two of my organs ruptured. So I had extensive surgery, and when I came out of that, I was a little bit a mess, to say the least. So as I was trying to deal with that, I found that I had a lot of anxiety and I had PTSD, and I couldn't focus on anything except what happened to me. So my husband is a developer, and he said, "Why don't you try coding?" And I thought, are you kidding me? I don't have enough to do. But whatever, he wore me down, I guess. And I started coding with Free Code Camp. I'm like, wow, when I'm coding, I'm not thinking about everything that happened to me, and I'm just focused on the code. And even when I got an error message, it was kind of a blessing because I was so focused on figuring out what to do with this error message and how to make what I want the code to do to appear on screen, that it took my mind off of everything else. So initially it was incredibly therapeutic. And it suits my personality. There was a lot of logic behind it, but still some creativity. And those are things that I like to do. And very early on, I found Moms Can Code on Twitter. They're momscancode.com if you want to check them out. And it happened that their founder, Erica Peterson, lived about 40 minutes from me. And she said, "Hey, let's meet up." And for me, this was huge because somebody was kind of reaching out to me and saying "Hey, let's have this personal relationship." And so I found that they were in an incredibly great support system to help me to continue on this journey, and not only the coding journey, but the mom journey as well, which was, kind of was in a funky place at the time because of everything that happened. So they really supported me when I needed supported, and still do. And that's why I've become a coach for them. Like you said, I am going to be teaching. It's called a 30-day blockchain challenge, but we focus on Ethereum. So we learn a little bit about what Ethereum is and what are the terms and what can you do with it. And we do a little bit of coding in Solidity too. So that's kind of where I am now. I also am super excited to say that I received a scholarship. It's the Facebook and Flatiron School Scholarship, and I just began the Flatiron program on Monday. So that's the condensed version of where I've been since last fall.
That is quite a story, and very. I'll even say inspiring. To come out of something medically traumatic like that and land here. Really exciting to hear.
Thanks.
As listeners have heard, Randy's taught at the Northwestern Boot Camp, so you're probably better off at Flatiron than in one of Randy's classes, but.
Is a Flatiron? I guess I'll ask: is a program you're doing is a full-time program? or do they offer part-time? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Because I am a mom to 4 kids who are 9 and under, I don't have time for a full-time program right now, but they have like an online flex program. So I think most people finish it within 12 to 18 months and on average spend, I think, between 2 and 3 hours a day on it. So it's nice that I can do it online. This morning I got up at 4:45 and I worked on it before the kids were up. And then like sporadically when I have time. So it's really flexible. And I found there's a couple of other moms in Moms Can Code that have done it too. And I think their job placement rate afterwards is like 97%. It's really high. So I feel really confident that I'm going to learn a lot, but I'm going to come out job ready too.
That's excellent.
I mean, this probably goes into more about Moms Can Code, the entire goal around that program. But the part-time boot camps, to me, are the best way to make the goals of inclusiveness work in the tech industry. Mainly, like, just from observation. This is definitely not a scientific study of my own, but I have substitute taught for, I've taught the part-time course at my boot camp, and I also taught a full-time course, and the diversity between the two is pretty striking in terms of we had a woman with 3 kids in my part-time class, and everyone that was in the full-time looks like they were pretty much out of college. There weren't a whole lot of folks willing because you got to work or you have a family to raise. And I think that the online programs, which I have not taught, but I've been introduced to, I feel like this is the way people are going to really transition en masse, not this like, hey, let me drop everything for 15 weeks and just focus on code, because people have lives to do in the meantime.
Yeah, it is totally not realistic to say we're including moms in everything, but stop what you're doing for the next 12 weeks and totally immerse yourself in this when your kids are at home. It's just not doable. I mean, it's prohibitive because of time and also resources, because, we're also responsible for families. So I had tweeted about a topic similar yesterday or the day before, talking about, how companies can be more inclusive. And there are some companies who let their employees work in different time zones. So there's a little bit of overlap, but not total. But then we have other companies who refuse to be flexible for moms who might need to take their kid to the doctor or start at a later time or start at an earlier time. I feel like the tech industry has a great power to be flexible in those types of things. And so let's open up the education to people by doing what boot camps are doing, and let's open up the industry as well.
Yeah, for
Fully
sure.
Agree there.
Yeah, we've talked about so one thing we've talked about in the past is getting into a flow and the ability to focus. So how do you work? What you already talked about how you work on this, and you talked in one of your blog posts I read about the same thing, about getting up early, working through stuff, and then the baby wakes up and that sort of thing. So it's certainly great that you're able to push through and probably baby in one arm continue learning.
Very frequently.
So that's great. Let's talk a little bit more about Flatiron, and then I want to jump over to Moms Can Code. What is the curriculum that you're taking at Flatiron? Is it as far as what platforms, what languages, what do you expect to come out of that with?
So right now I have just kind of jumped into it. They do have a free online, I think it's called a bootcamp prep. which I started with. And this is how I fell in love with Flatiron School. I'm like, they get me. They understand how I need to learn. And so I did that, and now I'm jumping back into it and starting with some Ruby. But the program is full stack. So I learned some, front end and back end, and I think, they've got JavaScript, they've got Ruby, and I'm trying to think of what else you're learning. But for now, that's where my brain is.
Sure.
That's all you need to worry about right now. Don't worry about the rest until they give it to you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, great. So let's talk real quick about the Ethereum challenge that you're setting up. What's going into that? What are you doing to prepare to what it sounds like is you're preparing this for others on the Moms Can Code platform to go out and try. So how are you building that, and what are the prerequisites for it, and what are people getting out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I ran it once before, and so I have made some updates to it. I think a beginner could do it, but if you have some experience with the coding language like JavaScript, it doesn't have to be much, but understanding the basics, I think you'll find the activities will go by a little bit quicker. But still, I would call it a beginner course. So you're learning about what it is, why it's important, in coding in Solidity. So it's basically a curated list of materials that's only about 5 hours a week, because I tried to figure out what's doable for moms who are already doing everything, right? And I think 5 hours is probably the max that I would go. And there's some materials that you could probably skip over. There's videos that you could watch on time and a half and still get something out of it. And so by the end, you should have an understanding of what Ethereum is, how to use the language Solidity, what you can do with it, and how you can make a decentralized app.
Cool. So if you don't mind, if you don't mind expanding a little for me, because I know Ethereum is a currency. I also know it is a language, and that's why, or a platform, and that's why a lot of people are big on Ethereum versus Bitcoin or some of the others, is because it's a bit of everything.
Yeah.
What are a couple things that can be done with Ethereum and Solidity?
Yeah, so I think there's so much that can be done with it, and that's why I love this idea of looking into it and seeing what people are doing with it. And so I'll give you a basic example, if that's okay, and then tell you a couple of things that I think it would be really awesome for. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, so just a little bit about Ethereum. It's a decentralized platform that runs smart contracts, which basically means there's computers all over the world that it's run through, and there's no one point that makes it controllable. And this is one of the things that makes it, this is why it's called decentralized. This is why it's really secure. And so what we do with what you see happen is there's these smart contracts, okay? So basically you are creating a contract and it's run through here. And that means you're taking out the middleman. And so one example that I heard that I really liked was if you have an apartment that you're renting, you can have a contract written on Ethereum, on the Ethereum blockchain. And it can say, this person has to pay me rent by the 1st of every month. And as long as they do that, the locks on the doors will still work. Now, assuming you have some kind of electronic computerized lock. So say a person doesn't pay you on the 1st, they don't go and deposit that. And so the contract is now void, and it automatically resets the locks so they can't get into their apartment. And so then you eliminate things like having to evict somebody or deal with people not paying. So you're probably thinking like, well, that sounds really crazy. Maybe they just forgot and they were going to pay you that day. So yeah, this is one of those examples that shows how it could be both good and bad, because you're eliminating all of those little things like going and collecting money or having to deal with people who aren't paying rent. But at the same time, you'll find that in some ways, this isn't a good example because sometimes you need that human understanding. So maybe this person was late on paying their rent because their boss was late on paying them, but they have the cash for you on the second. And so then there's where some problems come. But I think that there are applications, and I use that one because I feel like it's understandable, that example.
Sure.
But some of my favorite ideas, okay, so I know a lot of moms who do freelance work. And if you run your contract on the Ethereum platform, someone pays you the money and the website gets launched, or they get the article that you wrote for them. And so in that way, there's few things worse than being a freelancer and doing all this work and then people not paying you, right? You don't want to have to go to court over a couple $100s because that's a waste of your time. But at the same time, you need to get paid. So I like the idea of freelance on there. If you're looking big picture, we can talk about voting using the Ethereum platform. Talk about secure. I doubt there would be any issues with vote tampering or anything like that if we're running it on Ethereum. One of the things that I think would be an amazing application, based on my experiences over the last 2 years, is in healthcare. We have hospitals that are not communicating with each other in terms of medical records. So I gave birth in one hospital and I had my surgery in a totally different network. So I had to get records transferred, and not everybody is inputting data in the same way. And so more than once in my life, I've had a difficult time transferring records. And also, like, the lack of security in record transfer, I was just really shocked at. So if we want to make health records secure, 1, put it on an Ethereum platform, and 2, create a system where the data is all taken in the same way. So if we can do that, I feel like we could solve a lot of health crises in the United States, and we could even look at data more closely to help prevent health crises from happening. So that goes a little bit beyond the Ethereum platform, but I think it's one step in doing something that could be really beneficial to healthcare.
For sure. And that certainly seems to be the promise of the blockchain, is the decentralized nature of it. And the worst example, the worst comparison I can come up with is probably like GitHub. GitHub is in itself a decentralized network. So it's not like this is a new concept.
Right.
It's just that they've done more with it.
Let me just ask, why is blockchain, how did you find out about it in the first place? And then why did that attract you to start with? That's, I guess, because it's a pretty complex thing to introduce if you're getting into this line of work, I guess.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because it doesn't seem logical to start there, right? Especially since I'm pretty new. But yeah. I would say the reason why I was, Moms Can Code said, hey, do you want to be one of our coaches? And I said, absolutely. So I'm like going over in my mind, like, what could I do? And at that point, I had started doing some Solidity coding online. And I found that I actually liked it, and that it wasn't that difficult for me to understand. I actually found that it was probably easier than JavaScript, for me at least. So I thought, okay, well, this is something I like. And I had listened to this webinar on Ethereum, I think. And they said, okay, so this is so new and Solidity is new, that anybody who is learning to do it now is going to help define it for the future. And I mean, what could be more interesting than defining something that's going to change the future? My background is in English. I taught college English for 10 years, and science fiction has always appealed to me. And in some ways, this felt like fulfilling the dreams of somebody who likes science fiction. Start here and you can do the future, right?
Yep. Very cool. So your journey, and I'm not comparing the medical aspect of it, because that was something you had to work through. Your journey reminds me a little of what Randy's wife is doing currently. So Randy, talk a little bit about the transition your wife is making and where she's ended up.
Well, her background is theater. And she worked her full-time job in the past, was working at a law office as an office manager. And she has always been the kind of fourth wheel whenever we hang out with other couples that code. And she just didn't have anything to say about it, and I think over time she got more curious about what we were doing. I did not start her down the Solidity Ethereum path, mainly because for me, I'm like, I don't know it that well, and I definitely don't want to have two, like, blind leading the blind. But I think after I taught the boot camp the first time, and I kind of talked about how, almost 30 people made these huge transitions in their careers, I think it became more like, in her life, she saw someone else making that change, and it no longer looked as completely daunting. And, we've had other friends that maybe they didn't do a boot camp, but the woman that works with me right now, she switched from being a hairdresser to a full-time developer, full stack developer. So awesome. All of those influences of people in our life and community kind of influenced her to say, maybe I should take a stab at this. And I did throw her in the deep end. I gave her a small project that while she was learning HTML, that actually was paid for by a client, and she did it really well. So that's how she got involved. We're now thinking about her doing a boot camp just to speed things up. But I think the community, like, that's why I am curious more about Moms Who Code, because the community is huge. Doing this solo, and I try to tell this to my students who love to work by themselves during classes. I'm like, learning solo is the least productive way to do it. Not that you can't, and not that you don't have a choice. Sometimes you got 4 kids at home, you don't really have a chance to take all 4 of them to a community center and code with people. But if you have the option, working with other people is a faster road, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. One of my favorite things to do with Moms Can Code is virtual co-working. I mean, one of the greatest parts of that is usually I have a kid interrupting or a child on my lap, and nobody cares because we're all working on this together. And it's nice to not feel like, oh, my kids are getting in the way of what I want to be doing, right? They can be right there with me while I'm doing it.
Have you all thought about kids who code and then just making them work on stuff for you that you then pull requests and you just merge them in the whole time?
We try and tell my 9-year-old all the time. He asked me the other day, how can I make $600 quickly? And I said, well, learn to code and you can build something for someone.
Exactly.
Yep, for sure. I was gonna say that's called child labor, Randy, but no, it certainly is a case of getting getting him involved early too. None of my children had any interest. My son went at his middle school. They had electives where he could do website coding and that sort of thing. So he took those, and he's like, I just don't like this. And I'm like, that's okay. It takes a demented brain to like to code. So
yeah, I was going to say my 9-year-old is learning Python now, which neither my husband or I really know. So it's interesting because he'll sit down and do, I can't remember the name of the program, but he works on it some because he loves video games and he doesn't get unlimited video game time. So this is part like, okay, well, you're done with video games for the day, but if you want to code, you can.
Yeah.
Sure. And that's why I pushed him in the direction of learning, is because he's got that same video game. Yeah. I like to do it. And I was like, well, this is a way you can actually learn how to program what they're doing. And he just came out of it going, no, it's too structured.
Yeah.
So very, and you were talking earlier about finding Solidity as a platform that spoke to you. And I think we've talked about how each person kind of has languages and platforms that work for them.
Right.
I've dabbled in a bunch of languages. I dabbled in Ruby. I dabbled in Python. I'm a little further than dabbling in Python, but Ruby never spoke to me. I was able to do the examples. I worked through a whole course, and at the end of it, I was like, you know what, this it's just not flowing for me. I tend, and this might just be who knows the psychology behind it, but I tend to drift more towards the scripting languages. So early on, my biggest one was PHP, and then I slowly drifted over to JavaScript as well. And now JavaScript is becoming less scripty and more compiled with all the different pre-processors you have to put in it.
Yeah.
But it all depends on the person. I mean, Ruby to me was the easiest thing I've ever learned. It was I loved it. I still do. There's, I wish it was as prevalent as JavaScript, because I always prefer coding in Ruby versus JavaScript. The only problem is JavaScript is everywhere. It empowers you way more. And that's the big divide there.
One thing you were talking about earlier, and I know we're bouncing around a bit, but there's so many different things I want to hit, and I keep coming back to my notes. We talked about inclusivity and how companies can make it easier. Randy and I have discussed previously remote work versus working in the office, and in order to do that, a company has to be a bit more results driven than time clock driven. And I think that goes along with what I was reading along in one of your blog posts, which was part-time work is just as important as full-time work.
Yes.
It's as long as you have the mindset of results driven. Are you getting done what you're supposed to be getting done? Are you getting done the assignment, as opposed to did you put in an 8-hour day?
Right.
So I don't know if you want to expound on that a little and your thoughts on part-time.
Sure. And that's one of the things that it's my goal to work part-time or do contract work, because like I said, I've got kids at home and I want to spend time with them when they're at home. So I was doing this online webinar when I asked a question to this person who was kind of giving the webinar, saying, I'm a mom, and is it worth it for me to go through this if I want to work part-time? And the man said, don't sell yourself short. You could, something about you could be a kick-ass mom and work full-time at the same time. And I thought, I know that I could, but that's not what I want to do. And I think a lot of moms are in the same situation where we're really hard workers, but we're being overlooked because we can't put in the 40 hours a week that companies are asking us to. And I think that if you look at projects and look at how projects are broken down, you could definitely plan a timeline that includes part-time work. And by allowing somebody to come in and work part-time, you're increasing the diversity in your company because you're offering opportunities to people who want to be working part-time. I think that there's this strange assumption that everybody wants to work full-time. And it's good because full-time jobs offer insurance. Well, my husband has insurance, so I don't need that. But I do enjoy doing the work, and I am a hard worker. And I think because of my background, I bring a unique opinion and viewpoint. And I think that's the same thing as a lot of other moms who are being excluded because of their desire to work part-time. I think once you open that up to moms or other people who want to work part-time, you'll see there's not only a growth in productivity, but also in creativity coming out of those companies.
Yeah, there's also the added benefit of focus. I mean, when you bring in part-timers, you don't tend to try to spread them all over the place. You give them specific tasks and, very goal-oriented type of projects, which in a way makes more sense for a lot of people. So many people are not good at multitasking. So I think it takes... I think that the problem starts with management that can only think along one track, and they can only envision full-time people that do lots of stuff and not people doing chunks of work. And that's what it's going to take, is a switch at the top. But that's harder to do. It seems like it's a stubborn environment in that type of, a lot of management ladders to keep things the same way.
I think that it doesn't make sense. We want to grow and expand, but look at the way we're doing things. And I worked for this organization, ballotpedia.org, out of the Lucy Burns Institute. And I was a writer there for only a couple of months. But they had mostly part-time workers, and they did a fantastic job of making sure that everybody knew what their responsibilities were, what the projects were short-term and long-term, and there were so many great spreadsheets. I wish that I had access to them still, because even though writing articles isn't the same thing as coding, there was a little bit of coding type stuff that we did there. But because of how organized it was, we could see where we were going in the next year and all of the pieces that would take us there. So yeah, it does require some planning, but they were organized and things got done on time. And I think that's also helpful to think of when you're looking at timelines. Well, we want to get these projects done and we need full-time people. But if we look at a larger picture, even go to 5 years, you can still get those things done. And I don't know this from any research, but I think with more precision than if you just said only with full-time people.
Yep. So I want to switch gears a little bit, going back to, you discussed the Moms Who Code program, and I'm curious about that, mainly because I went to the website and there's a ton of topics and different things. Can you speak more about that program from the perspective of someone who doesn't know about it and may be looking to join? What does Moms Who Code focus on? What do they offer, and how do people get involved?
Yeah.
So before you jump in there, Bekah, and I apologize for interrupting. Let me help with the branding. It's Moms Can Code,
okay.
Not Moms Who Code. So go ahead, Bekah.
No, thank you. I know, and there's so many different organizations, and a lot of them are who, but I'll talk about the name just for a second because I think it's important. So it's Moms Can. We're enabling moms to do things. They have the abilities, and we're just supporting them in that. And so for so many things that moms do, I think it's often thought of in the negative. Well, moms can't be doing this because they're doing this. And so this is that affirmation that yes, you can do it, and here's your support system. I'm very fortunate to have found Moms Can Code when they were just beginning. So they had just launched in August, and I think I found them in October. And to find that support to say, you can do this. This is something you have the ability to do, and to have those cheerleaders, because sometimes you just need a cheerleader, all right? Somebody to say, I know you had a bad day, but look where you were 5 days ago. You're already ahead of that. So first of all, it's a great support network of moms saying, you can do this. But also, we have this community of women with a variety of backgrounds. So total newbies, somebody coming in and saying like, hey, I heard about coding. Can you tell me what it is and why I should do it? And we have, you put that on the Facebook page and you get 60 responses because everybody has their story to tell. So we have the newbies, but then we also have the veterans who have been doing this for years and years. And those are the people that kind of act like the mentors. And so I know there's one woman in particular, Christina Gorton. She's of Coffee Craft Code. Anytime I have a question about CSS, I'm like, Christina, you know how to do this, because she's just fantastic at creating artwork with CSS and doing these other great and beautiful projects. So we have the mentors there, and then we have the mom support. Like somebody said yesterday, I have been parenting my kids by myself for the last X amount of days, and I'm losing my mind here. And then you get that support too. And so it's nice. So number one, it's a support organization. But second, we're an educational organization too. So not only do we run the 30-day challenges, so mine is on blockchain. I've talked about that already. We have ones on transitioning into technology from another field, building a portfolio, working with CSS, doing APIs, web accessibility. I know there's more that I'm missing. Yeah. And I'm talking too fast. Sorry.
You're fine.
I'm just excited. I talk fast when I'm excited. So we offer those. But one of the benefits that I just want to touch on about what we're doing here with our challenges is Erica Peterson, the founder of Moms Can Code, said one of her goals is to pay moms to do things, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the things we're looking for is financial independence, or to be able to make some money. And so she's fulfilling some of her goals by supporting us as we are teaching other moms to do these things as well. And one of the things that I love about that is I don't have to sell somebody makeup or weight loss program, which is fine for many people who want to do those things. That is not my personality. I can't do that. And so here, I really appreciate being able to work a side hustle that's doing something that I want to be doing. So we have the challenges, but Moms Can Code is also training women to be leaders in the community. So they call them the lead hers, H-E-R-S. And this is training women to bring technology to their kids, to bring it to their places of faith and worship, and to say, like, I understand technology and I can help you to understand it too. And I think that's huge for us as moms, because we're frequently with our kids, and our kids are learning to do things that involve coding now. I'll never forget, I used to be a GED teacher. That was my first job out of college. And there was a guy that I taught, and he was maybe in his 40s, and he had a daughter that he had been homeschooling because she was bullied. And he said to me, I can't homeschool her anymore because I don't understand the material, and she needs to have a teacher that knows it. And in many ways, I've kept this with me for the last 13, 15 years because my kids are going to reach that point that if I don't learn what they're learning, then I'm not going to be able to help them either. And my kids aren't homeschooled right now, but other moms are in the community are doing that. And I just think that's amazing to be homeschooling and working and learning. So we have some like really great go-getters. And another awesome thing about Moms Can Code is they have a partnership with ProGate Plus, which has coding lessons, I think 55 coding lessons that you can take for free. And along with that, Moms Can Code is also going to be offering free courses in, I think, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Yeah. Maybe somebody's doing a webinar on Ruby today. Maybe it's, no, the intro to game development is going on today. And I think they'll keep running that as well. And somebody else is doing an intro to Ruby coming up. So I feel like no matter what you're interested in tech, Moms Can Code has something for you.
Yeah.
And if it's not there already, just say, hey, I would love to know more about whatever. And then you will find it there probably within a month because everyone is so willing to help you grow.
Well, I can definitely relate to your statement about kids learning from their moms. I mean, my mom didn't get into coding, but she definitely started her own business. And all the time, even yesterday, I'm thinking about issues and how she dealt with things as an entrepreneur and how I'd have to do the same as a consultant freelance developer. So, like I think you will introduce more kids and youth into development if their mom is the first outlet, for sure.
Yeah.
So I can see benefits there.
Well, not only development, but just empowerment.
Yeah.
Just going out and actually, I shouldn't use the word actually, just going out and doing things is very empowering. So, as two middle-aged white guys, Bekah, is there anything we can do to help promote the Moms Can Code platform, mission, that sort of thing? Because we don't want to come in there and mansplain everything. So how can we help not being moms?
Yeah, I think that there are some really great ways that you can help. Always support the organization in whatever ways you can. So one of the ways, we have a summit coming up, a Moms Can Code virtual summit. This will be the second one. And so they're currently accepting talks right now. So I think it's great to come and talk at the summit because you're sharing with us what your experience is and you're showing that you support us. So even though you might be talking to all moms, you are supporting us by telling us, like, here are some things that can help you, or here is a trick that you will help your experience. So I think speaking at our summit is a good way to do it. 2, always donating. I was very fortunate to receive a, I guess, scholarship, they would call it, to become a part of Moms Can Code because initially I didn't have the money to pay. And it's not that much. It's only $5 a month. So somebody, I guess, had donated money and I became part of this online platform. You can still participate in the Facebook page for free. And that's great because there's a lot of support there. But all of the extras that come from the platform were really helpful for me as I was initially in my coding journey and now. So I would say financial assistance is a good way. 3, always any shout outs on social media and positive comments, like cheer us on or talk about the great work that we're doing, because the more people that know about this, the bigger our community becomes. And that's how we get moms in tech to continue to grow. If anybody has job postings or scholarship listings or conference information, all of that stuff is a great resource for Moms Can Code too. So I know Moms Can Code was really fortunate to have tickets to some conferences that they were able to give for free. So you talk to people that organize conferences, or you have connections. Like, if you could use your connections to help us, to hook moms up with things they wouldn't be able to do, that would be amazing. I went to my first conference a month ago, and it blew my mind wide open. I came out of there with so much going on and so much excitement that that I think that's a good thing for everybody to experience. So so support in whatever way you can, but those are the ways that I think could really help moms now.
Awesome.
Sure. That's great. Now, I'll get some information from you on the virtual summit so that we can put it in the show notes. Is it a specified time, or is it an ongoing thing? Talk a little bit more about the summit.
Yeah, so it is a 1 week a 1 week summit of talks that run almost all day. I want to say like 10 to 4 every day. So there's a variety of time slots that you can pick from, and moms can tune in. The greatest thing for me to be able to experience this was I had 2 crazy toddlers running around in the background making noise, but I had it on the entire week. And some talks I was able to focus on, and others were recorded so I could go back and really say, like, all right, she's working with Jekyll and so am I. And so I need to be able to focus. I'll do this after the kids go to sleep. So it's a week-long summit of online. There's moms who are there who can ask questions, but it's also archived so they can go back and watch them when they have time, or if they want to review it as well.
Okay, when will that be going on?
That's I want to say September, but I should have written it down.
That's okay. We'll gather that, and we'll put that in the show notes, and we'll be promoting it.
Awesome. Thank you.
When we see it come along, we'll absolutely promote it. So great. So Randy, did you have anything else for Bekah?
I mean, not specifically. I will say that I think the woman that was in my class with her kid, like as a mother, was a terrific example for the students in my class, because everyone would talk to her and be in awe of her energy and the fact that she was doing what, everyone I think had a respect for what moms have to do on the family side, but she was also the top performer in our class. She was not just in code and building things, but on projects, she was a lead or often in charge of things. And she also had the energy level that so many of the other folks didn't have. And I think that she, there's something to be said for people that get a lot of stuff done, in which motherhood involves, bring it to other areas. So I think, props to you for everything that you have been able to achieve thus far, along with a family, raising a family. And I feel like we do need more individuals like you and her that can, bring a completely different perspective of how much people can do all at one time.
Yeah. And I just real quick to build off that, because I really appreciate that. And I think, moms have more at stake here, right? Because we're giving up whatever else we're doing during the day to be learning how to do this. So we're often sacrificing any personal time that we have. But also there's a long history of women who have been doing this stuff. If you look at the history of computer science and technology, women have been there all along. Our stories just haven't been told. So to hear you tell a story, and for you to invite me on to tell a story, that's also a wonderful way to support moms and to say, like, listen, this isn't a new thing for moms. We just have been forgetting about them.
Yep.
Yeah. So Bekah, where? So you're on Twitter as Bekah HW. So
Yes.
BekahHW, correct?
Yes.
And how can they find you on the Moms Can Code platform? Do they look for Bekah? Do they look for Ethereum? How should they find you there?
Yeah, so I have the same username for Moms Can Code Twitter and Instagram. So you can find me at Bekah HW. And if you go to the Moms Can Code website, there's a tab that says Our Programs Meet Our Coaches. And you can find me there as well. And that's where you can click to find my beginner blockchain challenge.
Okay, great. And we're going to put those in the show notes as well, so that people can look that up if they're driving. So great. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on and join us. It's great to hear about everything going on with the Moms Can Code platform and everything you're doing. I'll wrap up with one final thing. I know that you've talked about also at some point screenwriting. So how does that come about? Is that something that you've always had an interest in?
It's funny, when I was getting my master's in English, I decided that I was going to write my first screenplay, and it was absolutely awful. I had a cousin who's a director in Nashville, and he looked at it and he said something like, cut 60% of it and then rewrite it. And I thought, oh man. But I find that it's not that far from coding, because you are world building and you have to look at small picture details as well as large picture. And so I really enjoy it as a creative outlet. And one of my goals is to figure out how I could merge coding and screenwriting together and then have my dream job.
Sure. Well, great. Well, again, thank you. And we look forward to seeing what else you end up doing out there. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And
best of luck with your goal of streamlining healthcare information and records, because Lord knows the world needs that more than anything.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for listening to This Old App. Show notes and previous episodes can be found on our website at www.thisoldapp.online. Reviews on Apple iTunes are always appreciated and help promote the show. For questions, comments, or things you would like to hear on future shows, please email us at hello@thisoldapp.online. Show music is Guns Blazing by Fab Claxton, licensed by Pond 5. Voiceover work by MeganVoices.com. You'll hear from us soon.